Right now, he's literally juggling the 5, 6 different remotes for his system and gaming consoles and all of that. And this is going to be absolutely perfect. Hey guys, welcome back for another video. Today I have the new Sofabaton, well, relatively new anyway, latest I should say, X1S smart remote system. This is meant for home theater use to gather all of your remotes, chuck them into one as far as functionality, and just use one remote to rule them all. This is a modern replacement, or at least designed to be, for Harmony, which is unfortunately no longer sold, still supported, but no longer sold. So I'm gonna unbox this really quick. We're gonna go over what's in it and what you get. Got a nice thick manual here. I need to charge it up. I need to update its firmware, make sure it's got all the latest updates and features ready to go. But let's take a look at the device itself. It's got a good weight to it. I was expecting it to be very lightweight. It is a almost rubberized like plastic. It's got a just very fine texture to it. Definitely plastic, but it's nice. It doesn't feel like really thin ABS or anything like that. Buttons are nice. I didn't know how these would feel either. They have a little bit of a tactile click. And again, that same just almost rubbery type texture on them, same as the remote body itself. They have enough give where you're not going to accidentally click them. You can rest your finger on them, but you have to actually press, and you hear it a little bit. Let's take off this protective film and see what this feels like. I'm not sure of the control setup. It looks like a D-pad kind of thing. So the front, the center is just one big button. And then we do have 4 around this ring that just rocks. So it is like a D-pad. And nothing on the diagonals. It'll actually click both if you click a corner. And then this is interesting. Let me take this off the main screen. Oh, and it's got power. It says no activity is very faint there. I'm sure it goes brighter, but we'll take a look at all that later. So this is like a center mouse wheel. We do have detents. And then we can press it as well, just like a mouse button, for a click. So you tap off. Hopefully you can see that. A little glare there. It says turning off. I'm sure the screen will go brighter. I can barely see it. On the bottom, we've got a USB-C for charging, no doubt. Feels very nice in the hand. It's got a good size to it. Your thumb goes right to the D-pad. So assuming this is for main navigation, hopefully you don't have to go up here. I wouldn't imagine you would. I mean, this is perfect for navigation. Maybe this is only for controlling the screen. I don't know if it's a touch screen. Oh, it's not. Okay, so I bet this is only for controlling the, yeah, okay, there it is. So now it looks like it's kind of half booted. And let me go into settings really quick just to see if there's a brightness so you guys can see what I'm trying to show you. We got sync, LCD sleep, restart, language, firmware. Let's see if there's anything under LCD sleep. No, there isn't. Okay, how do we go back? Not down there. Click. Okay, just click is back. Let's try back again. No, wait, if I click on there, how do I go back out of this screen? No. Can't be on anything. Sync isn't gonna work because it's not connected to a hub. Maybe up here? That wouldn't make any sense. I hope that's not back. Anyway, we'll get to all of that. Looks like we've got 4 general buttons. Now in Harmony, these are relegated to the home control buttons, these colored ones here. And we'll see if these can be programmed to certain things. Got a hamburger menu button, a home button, back, 2 up and downs, looks like for volume and channel, a mute, and basic play commands, play, pause, forward, and reverse. Let me try settings again. There must be something in here for the screen brightness. All right, anyway, moving on. I will find it without wasting more time. Got a quick start guide here. Connect your hub to your Wi-Fi, add devices to your hub, create a new activity, and of course, view the website, which I will do. Inside here, we've got a wall wart for power, probably for the hub, I would imagine, maybe for the charger alone. We have some IR blasters here, and they go off a TR plug. Another one here, so it's probably going to be ports on the hub itself. USB-C cord to A. Then we have the hub itself. Now I'm wondering if they only give you the one power adapter, which would obviously be for the hub, and then I guess you're just on your own for charging the remote, and you don't have any kind of charge cradle. So here's the hub itself. Kind of looks like a wireless phone charger on the top there. Ooh, nice gloss black. It is pretty, I'll give it that. It's wall mountable, that's interesting. Rubber feet here on the bottom. That's just from the plastic film, not scratches or anything. We've got what looks like a reset, maybe a pair button there. Power USB port and the two outputs for the blasters. Got a light on the front. No doubt some sensors somewhere, and that's it for the hub. So very simple. And yeah, it looks like they just give you the power for the hub, and you've got to charge this on your own, which isn't that big of a deal. Everybody's got USB chargers these days. And a little different than Harmony, the remote here only talks to the hub. There is no IR emission from the remote itself. Everything is done from the hub and its blasters. It does Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and infrared. But of course, we'll have to see what support it has for Bluetooth, because it depends on drivers what devices can use Bluetooth or not. We've got QR codes for tutorials. There is an app, of course, that I will download, and that's what you use for setup. Doesn't look like there's a PC app for it. It's just Android and Apple. And then just instructions on how to add your devices and create activities. It also supports voice command via Amazon or Google. And we'll see if that's just starting and stopping activities or if there's any device control like Harmony has. Specs here say a charge time of 3 hours for the remote and a quote-unquote working time of 45 days. That is undoubtedly standby time, but I will be putting it to actual use to see how many days we get out of a charge. I would imagine quite a bit. Modern batteries are nothing like the old days. You only get maybe 3 days out of cradle for a Harmony Elite, which this would be the competition for, and I would bet this goes a couple weeks. And unfortunately, I was right. The back button is way up in the upper right-hand corner. I'm not quite sure what they were thinking about that. That is just as bad as the controls that were at the top of the Harmony Ultimate remotes. You have to actually shift the whole remote in your hand to reach it. That button on the hub is to find the remote. So it'll, when it's connected to power and connected to the remote, it'll make the remote beep. So if you lose it in your couch, you can find it. That's nice. All right, that's it for the instructions. All right, let me get to work. So interestingly, when I plugged in the hub, and assumably they connected somewhere in the background, the brightness came up. And Alexa, turn off the workspace. It's backlit. Now it's not a motion activated, but when you press a button, you get nice backlighting there on the bottom buttons, and the screen is almost exactly the same brightness as Harmony at full. So very nice screen. All right, now I've had a bunch of time here to experiment and play with it and kind of find its weaknesses and strengths. So what I'm going to do now, I've already wiped out everything in my app back to almost as I plugged it in, and I'm going to step through all the basic features and show you a bunch of tips and tricks that I found and things you need to look out for. So this is in no way meant to be a negative review, but there are certainly going to be some things in here that the company needs to change today, or you're just doing it plain wrong. Starting with how you access the app. So the first thing I did is grab my tablet. That's how I absolutely prefer to work, especially on things like this where you have a lot of information. I like a nice big screen, easy to type, you know, why wouldn't you? So I go on to the store to download the app, and holy moly, the thing's got a 2 out of 5 rating. And I'm looking at the reviews. Sometimes ratings like that are, you know, completely meaningless. They might be talking about an old version and the new one's fine, something like that. But no, it's just a straight up mix of half the people saying it's crap and half the people saying, I don't know what they're talking about, it's fine. Well, let me tell you exactly what they're talking about. Sofabaton, you immediately need to delist this from the App Store with compatibility for iPads. I don't know about Android, but at least for the iOS store, it is completely broken on iPads. You have, number one, it's just a representation of a phone on the screen. It's not a real iPad app. That's at least excusable if it worked, but it doesn't. Text is messed up. Links are messed up. Information is off screen. You can't even see to click. Fields don't pop up the keyboard, so you can't click in them and type, such as, oh, I don't know, searching for devices. It does not work. So that's that out of the way. Forget your tablet. You have to use your phone. So now here on a phone, it actually works just fine. As long as you got the proper screen, I didn't find anything wrong with the way it functions. So that's good. And if you're completely new to this, and I suspect many people are going to be, because this is a actually very reasonably priced system, and these days it's one of the only on the market. I think there's 2 or 3 that you can actually just go online and purchase right now. If you've got a bunch of remotes and you just want to put everything into one system, this is certainly what you're going to be looking at probably first. And it's probably going to be your only system. So this is what newbies are going to be experiencing. So that's why I want to point out everything that you really want to be aware of. But if you have any kind of experience with Harmony or Control4 or anything that you have to modify and make sequences and make decisions about, it's going to be completely intuitive enough, and it doesn't matter what these prompts mean. You're going to get it. So that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and set the thing up. The first thing you do is basically make digital copies of all of your remotes. And that's what we're going to do by adding devices. So I'm going to start, and it doesn't matter where you start with this system. Unlike Harmony, you don't have to start with the input device. You can start with your TV, your processor, your box, whatever you got. Doesn't matter. Just get everything in there. I'm going to start with my TV. I'm going to click the plus. The first thing it asks is, how does the remote communicate to the TV? And we've got 4 choices here. Infrared, which probably 99% of devices are going to be able to work with. But these days, modern devices actually have multiple choices. And it's really your choice, depending on what you want to use. And it depends on where your device is physically. Sometimes you have your control system in another room, or at least out of direct sight of the device you want to control. So infrared, which is a line of sight control, wouldn't work. Think of it as a flashlight you can't see. If you got the flashlight in the next room, flashing it isn't going to do anything to you in this room. So another option that goes through walls, such as Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or RF, may be the better option. Depends on the device, what it supports. In my case, this television supports both infrared and what's called IP control. Infrared most of the time is going to be the completely safe and at least operational choice, and that happens to be what I'm going to choose for my TV. So now we can choose what device we're going to put in. The fastest, easiest way is to simply click Search Model. And it's going to go through the Sofabaton database to see if that's already in the system. So you may just have to pick your device and you're good to go. If you have, let's say, a brand new thing, it just came out and nobody's bought it yet, to put it into the Sofabaton database, the company hasn't put it in there, no other Sofabaton users have gone and put it in there, so it's just not found. Don't worry, if you have an original infrared remote for whatever that brand new device is, you can teach it. So you can create a brand new one and actually add it to the database for anybody else that's going to be searching. So that's really cool. I'm going to click Search Model, and my TV is an LG. Happens to be on this front page. If you don't see it under this popular brands pop-up, just go ahead and type up at the top, and you can see it brings up a keyboard on a phone. Doesn't do that on the iPad, but that's okay. I'm going to pick LG. Now we have to pick the model number. And when you're putting in model numbers of things into systems like this, it's not the common name. So a lot of people will think, well, what model TV do you have? I've got a C2. Well, technically that's true. That's not the actual model name. You may have to Google to find the actual model name. In this case, it starts with OLED, and then the size, which is 8.3. So I'm going to go ahead and start typing that. OLED 8.3. From this, you can either keep typing or you can keep scrolling a little bit to find what you need. I'm going to do that. So I'm looking here in the list, and mine is the 83C2 PUA. The model names sometimes in these get a little funky. Costco, for example, can have one switched if it's just for a Costco model. Sam's Club does the same thing. Different regions also have different modifiers to that. So same commands, oftentimes it makes no difference which one you pick as far as that goes, as long as you picked. Quick pause while I had to change my camera battery. So now we see the commands list, and you typically don't need to do anything with this. It's simply showing you this is what the database shows for this remote control. I'm going to click next. You can rename it, change the icon if you wish. It's all cosmetic, doesn't really matter. I'm going to click complete. Now this is going to download the appropriate commands into your hub, and that way you don't have to have the thousands of different commands already in your hub hogging up memory. This only takes about 30 seconds. Now we can click complete. Now you're going to notice it says not configured. We need to click on it, and we're going to see options up at the top. Depends on the device how many of these options it's going to have, and it is simply telling you that there are some choices you need to make before the system can use this device. So the first thing it says is we need to complete the device's power settings. Go ahead and click where it says power settings. It's blue, that means it's a link. Those are some other things that didn't show up on the tablet. Couldn't click them. So the first thing it's asking is, how do you want the system to deal with the device as far as its power? And we've got 4 choices here. The first one, turn off when not in use. This is handy, for example, for a display if you're maybe listening to music and your display or your TV or your projector isn't being used when you're playing music. Now maybe yours is and you want it on, but in my case, I just use an acrylic streamer and I don't have the TV on. There's nothing showing through video at all. So that would be a good choice. When I'm not in an activity that uses the display, turn it off. Completely fine. Now maybe you have a device that you always want to stay on. This would not be a good choice for a display, for example, because it would literally never turn off. You go to bed for the night, you turn everything else off, and oh look, the TV's still on. Yeah, that doesn't do much good, but it makes sense for other devices that maybe you do always want to be on. For example, a streamer box. Maybe you don't want it to turn off. Maybe you want it always ready. Your choice. Now the third option, stay on unless the off button is pressed. Like when ending an activity, you turn your system off, you want it to turn off. This is going to be the pretty normal choice. Most specific devices to an activity, this is going to be what you're going to choose. So I'm going to choose that. The other one, no power switch. This is applicable to, say, my acrylic streamer. There is no power button. If it's physically plugged in, it's on. So ignore anything with power. You would pick no power switch. And it's always on, and the activities don't matter. The off button doesn't matter. It's always ready. It's always being controlled. So it's up to you and each individual device and how you're going to be using it, which one of these you pick. But it should be self-explanatory. I'm going to click next, and now we have to tell it, well, how does the actual remote work with its power control? In this case, this is my LG remote. I've got one power button. It does both on and off. Some remotes will have a separate button for power on and power off. So you just have to match what does yours do. In this case, I have only a power key with different actions, on and off. It does different things depending on the state of the display. Now, sometimes older devices especially, they'll only have one button, but it toggles the power. So it's just sending a command that just says, do something with power. It has no idea if the TV is already on or already off. It's just sending a power toggle command. That's what the same action would be. If your device sends a specific power on or power off command and it knows if it's on or off, that would be the only power key, different actions. And that's actually what mine does. It knows if it's on, so if you hit that button, it's not going to try to turn it on twice, it's going to turn it off. So that might, again, take a little bit of research or trial and error to figure out which one you've got. But for most people, I think that's, again, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to click next. Now, this screen is not intuitive. This is basically a, what do you want the button to do and how do you want it released? When you press power, this is building a sequence, and normally you don't need to add any other commands to it. So it's a literal one button sequence. But this is saying, when you press the power button, release it immediately. And they need a little blurb here above that says, then release immediately. If you click the word immediately, you can see that you can also have it long press for however many seconds. So sometimes you're putting in a command and you need to hold the button for a second or two to do what you're trying to do. That's what that's for. But the default is press and release immediately, a normal button press. And yes, that's how this one works. Normal button press to turn the power on or off. So I'm going to click test. And what this does is immediately fire that command off to see if it works. And my TV just turned on, so it works. However, big however here, if it didn't for any reason, if you press test and the TV didn't come on, well, then you would click no. Now, another strong suggestion to the company, immediately hire native English speakers to go through all these apps in all the different languages, because at least here in English, a lot of this doesn't make sense. For example, this pop-up screen, what this is asking is, did the command work? But it says tips. That word makes no sense in this prompt. Tips. Does the device respond correctly to the power commands? Yes or no? If it doesn't, don't assume that you have things wrong in your app, because the emitters, the physical IR emitters that come with this, oh, and by the way, you do need those plugged into your hub when you're doing all of this, because those are what are actually sending the commands. I should have mentioned that before, my apologies. They're pretty weak, as in they are not sending out a very strong IR signal. So let me show you what I have to do with the emitters here. This is a Harmony emitter, and this is the Sofabaton, so you can see the massive size difference. Now I've got to put one up here to go into my Ugus, which goes through these little holes there. I had to stick one on here to bounce into the Muse. It's just right on here. So this actually bounces off the glass door and goes right back into it, and then stuck one outside up here to bounce and get the receiver in the TV. So if you got a bunch of stuff, you're probably going to have to get a different emitter set or line it all up to hit. It's going to be annoying, but you can plug in whatever emitters you want. And there are also wireless emitter kits, and I'll put a link down below. You know, these are just a universal plug-in. You don't have to use any particular brand with any particular brand. I also misspoke. It only comes with 3 actual emitters. One cable has a single and one has the double that you can split apart. So the first thing is, if you don't get this to work, check your emitters. Hold an emitter right in front of your device to verify. If it works there, you know it's not your system here. It's where you've got your emitters. You'll just have to play around with it. All right, so yes, that worked. Now it's going to ask us, after we click next, to verify the off function. Obviously, should also work absolutely the same. Yes, the TV just turned off. Now we can click complete. Now the next thing we have to do up here is configure the source configuration. So I'm going to click that. This is asking, when you turn on your TV, do you need to change its input? Now in my case, I use my displays as a dumb display. They're not even connected to the network. There's no smart TVs in it. I don't get any firmware updates, nothing. They are just an HDMI screen, just like a computer. Everything goes through my processor. I've got one HDMI cable coming into the TV. That is the only input it ever uses for anything. So I click, no need to switch inputs. If you are using your TV as your input hub, you've got your game consoles, your input display, or your input box, whatever, more than one thing, or you use the built-in apps and you have to switch on the TV, then you would click, I need to switch input. And if you click, I need to switch input, it's going to ask you every time you create an activity, which one do you want to use? I'm clicking no because mine never switches input, so it's not going to ever try to switch the input. We'll click OK. Gives you this warning up here, basically saying if anything's wrong, go online to search for help. I'm going to close that. And now we've got a virtual remote control for the TV. All the commands that are on the physical remote here are now in the device. or in the app, I should say. So we can do anything we want, and more importantly, we can now use this to automate, create an activity with different combinations. And to do that, I need to put in all my other remotes, get all my other devices in here as virtual remotes, and then we can create those activities and select what we want to use with each one. So I'm going to go ahead right now, click back. You can see LG is the only thing in there at the moment. I'm going to put in a bunch of my other devices. I'll do my processor and my Apple TV and my Ugoos box. I could do a bunch of other stuff. Roku, NVIDIA Shield, Fire Stick. I think I'll probably just do 2 for the purposes of this review so I can show you making multiple activities and switching. That's all I need to do that, but you can go hog wild. I'm going to go and do that right now. Same procedure for those. So here's a couple of the activities I put in. I'm going to go ahead and delete them now, and we'll start from scratch so I can show you how to go through all these screens. And whenever you do want to delete one, just go into it, click edit, and then delete the current activity. It'll ask you to make sure, and it's wiped. Now, before you go into activities, make absolutely sure you've tested each device to make sure that it's responding to direct commands. So here in activities, same thing as device, we're going to add the plus. What it's showing now is all the different devices or virtual remote controls that you have added into your system. So for this particular one, it's going to be Watch Ugoos. And if you want to rename that, we can do that later. But you just put a check mark next to the specific devices that you want to be controlled in this activity. So this looks good. I'm going to click next. Now, because the processor in its power settings wants you to specify an input per activity, we have select an input here. So I'm going to click that, and now we can say, for this activity, which input do you want it to be set to? I'm going to go ahead and select HDMI 1, and the other ones don't have any input selections for their devices, so they say no need to switch input correctly. Click next. Now the next screen is asking, right now, as you're looking at everything, what's on and what's off. And that's so the system can be in sync from the start. So after you're finished making the activity, it doesn't try to turn something on that's already on, etc., etc. Right now I've got everything on. Actually, I have the Apple TV on right now, so I'm going to say the Ugoos is off, but the other things are on. And I'm going to click next. Now it's asking, on the remote control itself, what do you want to control volume? And up at the top it says voice button assignment. It's not asking about the actual voice button if your remote has one. This should say volume button assignment. So I want the processor to control volume in this activity, and everything else I want it to control the Ugoos box. So it got those right. And here's where you can rename the activity. That's really only important for what shows on the remote control. And this is weird. You know, I think I said earlier in the review that it wasn't sensitive to just picking it up, whether or not the remote is going to light up. And half the time that's true. But the other half of the time, like I just picked it up, I didn't click any button and it woke up. It's completely inconsistent. And I've tried to get it to do it. Sometimes I'll pick it up and absolutely nothing happens until I press a button. And then other times, seemingly randomly, it does. That has to be a bug because there is no setting for that anywhere. Don't ask me, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, the name and icon is really only relevant. The icon is only relevant to what you see in the app and what you see on the remote. And I don't see any parameters for uploading your own or anything like that. The name will also pull over to what you see in Google or Amazon if you want voice control of that. However, in those special apps, you could set your own names for the actual voice command. So don't really worry too much about what that says. Just make it look pretty on the remote is my point. So we're going to click complete. Watch Ugoos is fine for this particular test. And it'll take a moment and get you back to the home screen. Then you can go create your next activity. In my case, it's going to be the Apple TV. Now note, I do have to say that the power commands for the Ugoos were not correct out of the box. Number one, they didn't have one factory. Let me get to this real quick. I'm going to go to devices. I'm going to go to the Ugoos. I'm going to go to Edit, Power Settings. So going through this screen, these are the correct settings for it, but it still didn't work. So here's what I had to do. I had to repair command, and then under Power, click Edit, and I selected Select a suitable command from the cloud. I don't know where it's pulling it from, but it worked. The default one it came up with worked. The one out of the box for the IR commands didn't, but this did. So if you have one, do that. And if you have another device that was user input that isn't working for you, use the cloud and see if that command works better. Now for the Apple TV, it's a Bluetooth connection and it actually connected just fine. Just follow the instructions on the screen. You just go to your settings in the Apple TV, shows right up. You click connect and it said, hey, we're paired. That was it. Completely no muss, no fuss. However, out of the box, the power commands again weren't correct. The Sofabaton driver says that there is no power button. And well, technically, there is no power button. There is a power command. It's just a different sequence on the screen. So what you can do, if you want it to stay on all the time, that's fine. It'll just be running the screensaver when your system's off. But if you actually want to shut down, you can do it one of two ways. You can either have it long press the power command, and that works on some tvOS versions, or you can click the power command and then in the power sequence add an OK button press. And if you have an Apple TV, you know that brings up the little control panel and then clicks the power button. And again, some tvOSs, there's even another click you have to do to confirm. That changes over the years. And it seems like every OS update, there's something that breaks with the power commands because Apple doesn't give you a dedicated on and off thing. It's always in software. But you're going to have to play with that and determine how you want it to work on your own system. So now we'll go in and add the Apple TV into Activities, and I'm going to deselect Ugoos, and I'm going to select Apple. It automatically changes it to say Watch Apple. That's nice. And we're going to select an input for this. Happens to be 2 on my system. Next, here is where it says, by default, no power key for the Apple. That's fine for setup. We have to edit it in a minute. Right now, the processor and TV is on. Click Next. Same with the volume control assignments. Default is good out of the box, and we'll complete. Wait for it to go back to the Activities screen. And then I will go in here and change the power settings for the Apple. So now I can go through and add whatever other activities I want. My Relic for streaming music, my Fire Stick, NVIDIA Shield, whatever. But right now for this video, these two are going to be good. So I'm going to click Watch Apple. It's going to go ahead and start the activity. The first time you run it, you get that default notice. You can just close that to make the screen look better. And we're watching Apple TV. You can use the virtual remote on the phone if you wish, or you can use the actual remote. It automatically syncs your changes to the remote. I like that. No need to do it manually. We've got the activity that's currently active in green and a bluish white for anything else on the screen. Use the roller to select which one you want to go to. Press it to select. I just started the Ugoos activity and it just switched. So now I'm in the Ugoos and my remote is controlling it. If I want to go back to Apple, roll down to Watch Apple, press it, and it is already switched. This is very fast, a lot faster than Harmony, I have to admit. The response for everything is absolutely instant. It's already up and running. I dig it. Now, one important thing to note is if you need to control other smart home devices, IP control, you're going to have to use additional things like a Home Assistant server because there is no direct connection between the Sofabaton and the rest of your smart home. That's one big differentiation between it and Harmony. And I mentioned Harmony only because even though you can't buy them new anymore, they're still prevalent in the ecosphere. Now, it's not a huge deal if you want to set up and use other kinds of stuff to run a Home Assistant server, but you do need some other type of hardware, a Raspberry Pi. If you have a NAS box, you can probably install one and run it natively right on there. A lot of people have that kind of stuff for their home media storage or backup. That's very easy to do. Maybe you have a home theater PC or a desktop that's always on, etc., etc. You're going to have to run it on some type of hardware. But once you have that set up, you can use what's called an emulated Roku device, and basically the Sofabaton will see this fake Roku and send all the commands you want to it, and then the Home Assistant will translate that and do anything you want, because it's a very powerful solution. But the point is, the Sofabaton is only natively working with things that have a physical IR remote that you can program, and it doesn't have to be home theater stuff. Anything that has a remote, an air conditioner, whatever you want to control, if it has an IR remote, you can learn it and put it in your Sofabaton and use that in activities. So that's pretty cool. I have to give them huge props for the battery life on this remote. I charged this a week ago. It hasn't even come off the full charge indicator on the remote. Can't get it to go down yet. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's what I expect here in 2025 for a modern lithium-ion battery, but I'm definitely not used to it. Now, my final destination for this is over at my friend Josh's house. You might have seen him on an episode of Real Rooms. Right now, he's literally juggling the 5-6 different remotes for his system and gaming consoles and all of that. And this is going to be absolutely perfect for him, especially since it means his wife and kid won't be accidentally clicking buttons and messing things up, and he's actually in that situation right now. So I've got to go next time I go down there and fix everything. But this will solve all of those problems for him. It'll be absolutely perfect. So the bottom line is, if you're looking for something to control not just your basic setup, this is far more than just a TV and a soundbar and using CEC. It's very inexpensive, goes for around $200. If I have any discounts to share, I'll put those down in the description below. So that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.